The first thing you must understand about me is that I do not forget. This is not a boast. It is a diagnosis. My name is Arthur Penhaligon, and for 30 years I have been a conductor on the Northern Rail Line. Most people see a train as a vessel of transit, a blur of metal moving from point A to point B. I see a catalog. I see the exact shade of crimson on the velvet upholstery of seat 4A. I see the 3 scratches on the brass handle of the dining car door, made by a signet ring in 1998. I see the ticket numbers, the faces, the luggage tags. My mind is a vast, cluttered archive where nothing is ever deleted. It is exhausting. It is loud. And on the night of January 14th, when the Silverliner Express ground to a halt in the middle of Blackwood Pass, that archive was the only thing that stood between justice and a perfect crime. It was 11:42 p.m. I know this because I had checked my pocket watch exactly 4 seconds before the brakes engaged. The sensation was not violent, but heavy. A lurch, a groan of steel, and then the cessation of rhythm. The heartbeat of the journey stopped, replaced by the howling void outside. We were trapped, buried under a snowstorm that the weather service had called severe, and which I would call apocalyptic. The silence of a stopped train is heavy. It presses against the ears. The heating systems hummed, a low, nervous vibration. I adjusted my uniform cap. The braid was slightly frayed on the left side. I needed to address the passengers. There were only 12 souls in the first-class sleeper car that night. It was the off-season, and the storm had kept many away. I walked down the narrow corridor, the carpet runner muffling my footsteps. I noted the details automatically. Compartment 1. Mr. and Mrs. Gable, elderly, asleep. I could hear the rhythmic, rattling snore of the husband. Compartment 2. Empty. Compartment 3. Julian Vane, a nervous man in a suit that cost more than my yearly salary, currently pacing. I heard 3 steps, a turn, 3 steps, a turn, and then Compartment 4. Occupied by Marcus Thorne, a man who seemed to suck the oxygen out of any room he entered. He was a corporate liquidator, a man who made his fortune stripping companies down to their bones. He had boarded in the city with a heavy leather valise and a look of permanent disdain. He had demanded his bed be made immediately. He had demanded tea, precisely at 10 p.m. He had warned me, with a cold, dead stare, not to disturb him again. I paused outside his door. The wood was polished mahogany. The number 4 was brass, slightly tarnished at the bottom curve. The storm outside battered the window in the corridor, a white fury against the glass. I needed to inform Mr. Thorne that we would be stationary for at least 6 hours until the plows could clear the track ahead. It was protocol. I knocked. A sharp, professional rap. 3 knuckles. Mr. Thorne? Silence. Mr. Thorne, this is Conductor Penhaligon. We have been forced to stop due to the weather. Nothing. No rustle of sheets. No grumpy dismissal. I waited exactly 10 seconds. My memory supplied the image of Mr. Thorne from earlier that evening. He had been wearing a charcoal suit, a blue tie with a small stain of coffee near the knot. He had looked pale, sweating slightly. Though the car was cool, he had been reading a thick hardcover book with a red dust jacket. I knocked again, louder this time. The silence from behind the door felt different than the silence of sleep. It felt absolute. A feeling of unease, cold and sharp, trickled down my spine. I reached into my vest pocket and retrieved the master key. It was a heavy iron key, old-fashioned, reliable. I slid it into the lock. The tumblers clicked 1, 2, 3, smooth. The door was unlocked. I turned the handle and pushed. The door opened 2 inches and then stopped with a metallic clack. The security chain. I peered through the narrow gap. The compartment was dim. lit only by the low-wattage reading lamp above the berth. "Mr. Thorne?" I saw him. He was lying on the berth, fully dressed. His head was turned toward the window, or rather, toward the reflection of the room in the black glass. His arm hung limp over the side of the bed. His fingers were curled loosely, as if he had just dropped something, and he was not moving. He was not breathing. The chest did not rise. The stillness was total. "Mr. Thorne!" I shouted, abandoning protocol. I pushed against the door, but the chain held. It was a solid steel chain, slotted into a track on the door frame and hooked onto the door itself from the inside. It is physically impossible to engage that chain from the corridor. The gap is too narrow for a hand to reach in and slide the bolt. I looked down through the crack. On the floor, beneath his hanging hand, was a teacup, shattered. Shards of white porcelain scattered on the dark blue carpet. A dark stain was spreading into the fabric. I knew, with the certainty of a man who has seen too much, that he was dead. I stepped back, my heart hammering a new, frantic rhythm against my ribs. Locked from the inside, window sealed against a blizzard, a dead man in a steel box. I turned to run for the emergency kit, and nearly collided with a figure standing in the corridor. It was Julian Vane from Compartment 3. He was wearing a silk dressing gown, his face ashen in the dim light. "What is it?" he whispered, clutching the lapels of his robe. "Why are we shouting?" "Go back to your room, sir," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "I need a doctor. Is there a doctor in this car?" My mind flashed through the passenger manifest. I visualized the list I had reviewed 3 hours ago. Name, seat, destination. Seat 5A. Dr. Elias Vance, retired general practitioner. "Dr. Vance," I said aloud. "Compartment 5. I didn't wait for Vane to reply. I moved to the next door and pounded on it. 10 minutes later, we had the door open. We had to use the heavy fire axe from the end of the car to shatter the wood around the chain mount. The noise was horrific, a violation of the train's quiet dignity. Dr. Vance, a small man with wispy gray hair and shaking hands, stepped into the room first. I followed. The air inside smelled of stale tea, expensive cologne, sandalwood, and bergamot. I noted instantly in the metallic tang of death. Vance checked the pulse. He lifted an eyelid. He looked at the shattered cup on the floor. "He's gone," Vance said softly. "Looks like heart failure." Or, he sniffed the air near the man's mouth. "There is a scent. Bitter almonds? No, that's too cliché. But there is a chemical smell. Faint. Poison?" I asked. "It's possible." Vance stood up, wiping his hands on his pajamas. "But Arthur, look at the door. Look at the window." I looked. The window was a solid sheet of double-paned glass, sealed shut, frosted over with ice on the outside. The door we had just smashed had been chained from the inside. "He was alone," Vance said. "If he was poisoned, he did it to himself. Or he took something he shouldn't have." I looked at the body of Marcus Thorne. My eyes, my curse, began to scan the room. I wasn't just looking, I was recording. I saw the book he had been reading. It was lying on the small table. The History of Venetian Glass. The bookmark was inserted at page 142. I saw his shoes, black Oxfords. The left lace was tied in a double knot. The right was a single knot. I saw his suitcase. It was on the rack, perfectly aligned with the edge. I saw the glass of water on the nightstand. It was full. There were 3 small bubbles clinging to the side of the glass, near the bottom. And then I saw the thing that made my stomach turn over. "No," I said quietly. "He didn't do this to himself." Vance looked at me. "What? How can you know?" "The room was locked." "The room was locked," I agreed. "But look at the table." Vance looked. "The book? The lamp? The reading glasses?" I pointed. "Mr. Thorne was wearing them when he boarded. He was wearing them when I brought him tea at 10 p.m. He needed them to read anything closer than arm's length. I saw him squinting at his ticket without them. So, I said, the cold settling deep in my bones. He is dead. The book is on the table, open to a page of dense text, but his glasses are folded and inside his jacket pocket. The button on the pocket is fastened. Vance frowned. Maybe he took them off before he died. If he felt a heart attack coming, or poison taking effect, he would clutch his chest, or drop the glasses, or knock them onto the floor, I said, reconstructing the physics of panic. He would not neatly fold them, place them in his inner pocket, button the pocket, and then lay down to die. And he certainly couldn't have been reading that book without them right before he died. I looked at the dead man's face. The expression was twisted, fearful. Someone was in here, I said. Someone killed him, staged the body to look like a natural collapse, and then cleaned up. They put his glasses away. They were tidy. But the chain, Vance insisted, pointing to the shattered wood where the steel slide had been engaged. Arthur, I watched you break it. It was solid. I know, I said. That is the problem. Someone walked into a sealed box, killed a man, and then walked out, leaving the box sealed from the inside. The train shuddered as the wind gusted against it. We were miles from civilization, trapped in the snow with a corpse and a killer who could walk through walls. We need to secure the car, I said, stepping back into the corridor. No one leaves this carriage. I am going to find out who did this. The investigation began with a mental rewind. I stood in the corridor, closing my eyes, blocking out the nervous passengers. I needed to access the archive. I replayed the evening. Frame 1. 8 p.m. The train departs. Thorne bumps into Julian Vane in the corridor. Vane apologizes. Thorne sneers. Watch where you're going, you parasite. Frame 2. 9:15 p.m. The dining car. A woman approaches Thorne's table. Elena Corvez, Compartment 6, dressed in severe black. She slams a hand on his table. You can't do this. Thorne smiles cruelly. It's done. Frame 3. 10 p.m. I bring the tea. Earl Grey. 2 sugars. Thorne takes the tray. Don't bother me again. He closes the door. I hear the lock click. I hear the chain slide. Clack. Zzz. Frame 4. 10 p.m. to 11:42 p.m. I am at the end of the car. I have a clear view of the corridor. Did anyone enter compartment 4? No. I open my eyes. If no one entered, then Thorne was alone when he died. But the glasses proved he wasn't. Everyone into the dining car, I ordered. We need to talk. They shuffled obediently. I took Julian Vane aside first. Mr. Vane, I said. You knew him. Vane wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. His hands shook. Everyone in the city knew Marcus Thorne. He was a shark. He called you a parasite. Vane flinched. He was buying out my firm. Hostile takeover. He was going to liquidate us. Fire everyone. I followed him onto this train to reason with him one last time. And after 10 p.m.? In my room, drinking, trying to figure out how to tell my wife we're bankrupt. Did you hear anything from his room? Vane hesitated. I heard a thump. Maybe around 10:30? I thought he dropped a shoe. And then maybe voices. But the wind is so loud, I couldn't be sure. Let me see your hands, Mr. Vane. He held them out. Soft, manicured. No scratches. Did you kill him? No. And how? The door was locked. I let him go and called Elena Corvez. She sat down and looked at me with flat, dark eyes. He got what he deserved, she said before I could speak. You threatened him at dinner. He was destroying my father's legacy. He bought our vineyard to sell the land for development. What were you doing after 10? Reading a book. In Agatha Christie. Which one? The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Where did you get it? I brought it. I accessed my archive. I replayed Elena boarding. She had a small tote bag. I saw the contents. Water, magazine, scarf, charger, no book. You're lying, Miss Corvez. You didn't have that book. Her face crumbled. I wasn't reading. I was pacing, standing in the corridor, staring at his door. Did you see anyone else? She hesitated. The waiter. He walked past me with a tray. He went to Thorne's door. My heart skipped. When? Maybe 10, 15, 10:20? Impossible. I was at the end of the car. You were in the bathroom. I saw you go in. You were in there for maybe 5 minutes. I froze. She was right. I had used the washroom. 10:15 p.m. I was in there for exactly 4 minutes. The corridor was unobserved for 4 minutes. I found Grigory, the steward, in the galley kitchen. Did you take a tray to compartment 4 at 10:15? He went pale. No, sir. Don't lie to me. Grigory slumped. He asked for more sugar. He rang the bell. I didn't want to bother you, so I took it to him. Just sugar cubes. Did you go inside? No. I knocked. He opened the door. He took the bowl. He gave me a tip. He seemed fine. Did you hear the chain? Yes. I heard the slide. Clack. So at 10:20 p.m., Thorne was alive. He took sugar. He locked the door. He chained it. And yet, he was murdered. A thought struck me. A childhood memory of a magic trick. The impossible knot. I ran back to compartment 4. I examined the chain mechanism. I looked at the carpet. And there, caught in the fibers, was a tiny, shimmering strand of fishing line, cut at both ends. A silver thread, I said. The archive opened. The pieces slammed together. The locked room wasn't locked from the inside. It was locked from the outside, by someone who knew mechanics. I looked at the teacup, the shattered remains. Dr. Vance, look at the sugar bowl. The bowl Grigory had delivered was on the table. Empty. He took 2 lumps at 10. He asked for more at 10:15. Why? He hadn't finished the first cup. I knelt and looked at the cup shards. There was a residue, not just tea, a white sludge, undissolved powder. He didn't ask for sugar, I whispered. He was already dead at 10:15. What? Grigory said. He spoke to him. Grigory lied, or didn't speak to Thorne. I marched to the dining car. I walked straight to Julian Vane. Mr. Vane, stand up. Take off your shoes. He complied. I checked the soles. Clean. Too clean. Grigory, who ordered hot water and dental floss? No one. We don't sell it. So where did this come from? I held up the fishing line. That's monofilament, said the backpacker. Fishing line. I turned to Vane. You are a fisherman. I remember your luggage tag. Vane went pale. Not everyone has a burn on their thumb. I grabbed his hand. On his thumb was a thin, red line. A friction burn from pulling a thin wire hard. Here is what happened, I began. You waited for the one moment I was absent. 10:15 p.m. The 4 minutes I was in the washroom. You went to Thorne's compartment. He let you in. You poisoned him. Cyanide. Fast acting. He collapsed. But you couldn't leave the door unlocked. You needed it to look like an impossible crime. I held up the fishing line. You looped the line around the chain knob. You ran the ends through the track loop. You stepped out. You closed the door. You pulled the strings. The tension slid the knob, engaging the chain. Once locked, you pulled one end. The loop came free. You pulled the line out through the door crack. The room was silent. Vane was sweating. But you made mistakes. The friction cut your thumb. And you're a tidy man. You saw his glasses. In your panic, you picked them up, folded them, put them in his pocket. A reflex. A fatal reflex. And finally, the sugar. Grigori didn't deliver sugar at 10:20. You lied, didn't you, Grigori? The waiter looked down. He paid me £200 to say I saw Thorne alive at 10:20 to mess up the timeline. I didn't know he was dead. Vane told me it was a prank. So, Vane kills Thorne at 10:17 during my bathroom break. He locks the door from outside using the line. He bribes the steward to create a false time of death. He sits in his room and waits. I looked at Vane. The archive doesn't lie. I remember the fishing line in your suitcase when you boarded. I remember the cut wasn't there 2 hours ago. I remember the glasses. Vane looked around. The exits were blocked. He slumped into the chair, face in his hands. He was going to ruin me. Take everything, my house, my children's future. He laughed at me, and so you killed him. I had to. It was supposed to be perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect crime, I said, because there is always someone watching, even if it's just a conductor with a headache. I turned to Dr. Vance. Please help us restrain Mr. Vane until the authorities reach us. The storm will break by morning. I walked away, back to the end of the car. I needed silence. I needed to close the archive. The train sat motionless in the dark, a steel capsule buried in snow. I sat in my conductor's seat and looked out at the swirling white. I would remember this night forever. The smell of almonds and fear, the fishing line catching the light, the way Vane wept. Most people can forget. They can let the horror fade, edges softening with time until the memory is just a story. But I cannot forget. I will carry Marcus Thorne's dead eyes and Julian Vane's ruined life with me until the day I die. It is the price of admission to the archive. I adjusted my cap, checked my watch 1:15 a.m., and waited for the dawn.